In this video, I'm going to demonstrate how that numbering pattern in the background in the Bible that we would have to have memorized in order to know it. We don't have it memorized. I'm going to show how it works in a way, how it's changing an analog. Wine. I'm a fan of Merlot myself. What does it mean? Is it my bottle of Merlot or is it something else? When we start shifting from the physical world into the spiritual or mental world, it is no longer wine. I'm not going to close my eyes and drink wine. What does that mean then? That wine, the term wine, suddenly takes on a different meaning. Same way as naked. If I'm naked in the physical world, well, I better be in my bedroom someplace, huh? I don't want to be in public. However, in the spiritual world, you exactly want to be naked in public. What does that mean? I got nothing to hide. Nobody's got anything on me. I am completely uncovered, but it's a spiritual or a mental process. So these are the analogs. The analog wine is used in Genesis, and it's being used in the book of Daniel. And in the book of Genesis, it's being used as a good thing. And in the book of Daniel, it's being used as a bad thing in the spirit world. Numbering patterns is how we determine what that is. The numbering pattern, the 3-7 grid that I've talked about, bam, here it is. It's going to open right up and show how it's working. However, this is just one word out of maybe tens of thousands in the Bible that are all following this pattern. If you don't believe me, download King James Version of a Bible and start doing what you see me do here. It'll boggle your mind. All right, my name is Dan Paulson. Welcome to the video. Let's just get right into it. Okay, the 3-7 grid, people that have followed know what that is for me. I'm going to pull it up here and let's just take a look at our numbers again. Very quickly, in case you haven't watched my videos before, 3 and 7. Do you see those in the Bible all the time? You ever notice on day 7? In fact, let me just pull it up right here, and it's easier this way. See where it says seventh day, seventh day, seventh day right there? That is repeated 3 times. And Langton made sure when he put the chapters and verses in to kind of point that out to us. He's trying to help us out here. He put that he put the chapter actually at the end of day 6. So this first creation story was not finished. He put the chapter on right here, and look at verse 3, where that last 7th is. So 7th day repeated 3 times and 3 right there. 3 is actually derived from day 3 up here, which is, let the earth bring forth grass and herb yielding seed, and the fruit tree yielding fruit after its kind, whose seed is in itself upon the earth, and it was so. That's karma. That's cause and effect. That's the measure you mete unto others will be likewise meted unto you. It's a different style. This is me. It's my garden. It's you. It's your garden. What is inside of us? Whatever gets planted in us is fruit tree yielding fruit after its kind. It's going to manifest. Whatever acts out of us is going to fruit into something, and it's going to be repetitive. Okay, so 3 and 7 right there is exactly this. This is us. This is you. This is me. And this is a point in time in the beginning. Naked, unashamed, in the Garden of Eden, pure, ready to go in life, not having judged life experiences yet, not having had first sin yet, and are going to live through cause and effect and cycles. All of that is set up in here at a deeper layer than what religion is. All right, going back to here, that's what I've done then. I've decided that must be, and I'm just working this out by looking for repetition in there and finding things. If you explore, you'll find this, but it takes time. And you have to look at it objectively. You can't look at it like you're trying to prove the story true. You have to look at it like, this is a puzzle, and that religion is just a carrier story. We have to get through that thing. Okay, Eden, pure, soul state. It's a mental hierarchy. Adam, Eve, each one of us, your conscious and your inner self. Why is Eve from Adam? Why is Eve subservient to Adam? Why does Eve experience pain every time childbirth? That's the cyclical pain that's happening. Every time something acts out of us, whatever that was planted in the garden, whatever fruits, all of that is going to be this very cryptic inner pathway of analogous verbiage. Anyway, I put the 3 and the 7 here. What happens though is you take those 3 and 7 and start looking through the rest of Genesis and you start seeing something emerge. All right, this is tricky. There are 3 places, actually 4 places. It's hard to tell in the flood, but there's an Adam's analog farm. Well, Adam's lineage. It's an analog farm. This is where those numbers are being gathered up. What happens is that the 3 and the 7 are now going to appear with other numbers, and as a result, gather up those other numbers. Do you see that 7 right there and that 800? Well, that's weird. The 800s and the 900s. But here's what they're doing tricky. 900 in Genesis is repeated exactly 7 times. What they're doing is they're using the 900 there as a surrogate. This is that's why I say use the King James Version. They start combining these and doing things in later versions, trying to make corrections, and they're dropping the code. They're dropping the code by not knowing what they're doing. This is code. Do you see? Yeah, okay. Do you see the numbers that appear with them here? The 30, the 7, the 12, 15, 5, 10, 35, 2, 5. All of these numbers on the ends down here are the numbers we're gathering. These are the code. Look at 770 and 7. All of these repeating numbers, and we're going to get down into another analog farm in, here it is down here in chapter 11. After the Babel story, what do we have plugged in here? There's another one of these. These are the generations of Shem. Shem was 100 years old and begat. So we have the same kind of numbering going on, but there's also things like this, 5 and 30 years. Backwards, 30's an analog. So is 5. 5 and 30 are both ones. But see how it's backwards. In later versions, they'll put in here 35 as they interpret this later on. But here's what is important to know. You're not supposed to have those numbers combined. That's a 400 and that is a 3. That's not a 403. That's a 400 by itself and then a 3 by itself. Grab those two numbers. This is a 4 and a 30. This is a 400 and a 30. You have to split them up, and these backwards numbers is how that happens. And you know what? If you just keep gathering up these numbers, you're going to find that they repeat over, and it's like, damn, the same numbers over and over again. Here it is again, if you pay attention to it. I thought that this always sounded weird to me. My mind works in a way that I question things, and I always thought it was weird that Abraham asked God all of these things. Would you destroy it for the sake of 50 righteous? What if there's 50 righteous? Would you destroy it for the 50? To slay the righteous with the 50 righteous. And you know what? If you went through here, you'd see that, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Righteous is repeated 7 times right here. And what is it doing? It's gathering those same numbers. 50, 5, 40, 40, 30, 40, 30, 20. And each one of them repeated twice. You know, it's like, boy, they're just hammering you with the same numbers over and over again in a variety of ways. But if you look through here, you'll see clues, like the righteous. It sounds like a Dr. Seuss almost. Would you destroy it for righteous? God, no, I won't, Abraham. I will not destroy it for. Yeah, I don't know. It has a weird sound to it. When they're repetitive like this, they're getting your attention. That's the code. And if we had it memorized, we would know this. We don't. They had to. They didn't read or write or have books. The scrolls were available, but they had to listen. If you wanted the story, you had to memorize it. We don't. We don't have it at the depth. All right, I hope that was a sufficient overview for what we're going to be doing here now. Wine is a term that it's a physical term, but it's also a spiritual term. It has a meaning. It has an analogous meaning in the spiritual world, and that's what we want to find out. And is it good or is it bad? What does it actually mean? In the physical world, we know that wine will make you, it changes the way you feel. It changes the way your emotions are. Okay, that's important. It's temporary, but it changes your emotional state. Good or bad? Yeah, both, huh? Okay, let's look in Genesis. Wine is repeated exactly 12 times. I've got to make sure. You always want to make sure you're not getting anything else. If swine or something like that could show up and give you a false hit. If we follow the lineage of gathering that, we find it up here in this, one of the 900s here in the Adam's lineage, or what I prefer to call an analog farm or an analog mine. So wine is said 12 times. Wine is a good thing. When we get down here to the story of Noah, what's happened here? We just had a flood. The water leaves. Noah comes out. He was a husbandman, which he planted a vineyard. This is us. You're Noah. We went through it. We just went through a cleaning. We just went through an internal purging. We crossed the threshold. The world that needed to be destroyed was our world. Now we are on the other side, and we plant a new place to live. We create a new life for ourselves, and we drink of the wine and was drunk and was uncovered in his tent. Uncovered. Just that one time. Uncovered though, yeah. Well, let's see. Adam and Eve were naked and unashamed before first sin. What happens here? We've had a purging. We are back to naked again. We're uncovered. And we feel good. 12 times wine, it's a good feeling. You realize then that the verse has to become mentally interactive at some point, even if it sounds like it's supposed to be spiritual or something like that. What the idea that after first sin, after partaking of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, we have now had life experience. We are now getting covered up as we go. We have, what is that covering? It's not leaves. It's not a loincloth. It's shame. It's anger. It's judgment. It's hatred. I'm not going to tell you that it hurts. It's many things that begin to hurt us. Let's put it all into practice. Nakedness. Exactly 5 times. So nakedness is a good thing. It's on that. What that means is pure state. It harkens back to that 3-7 time point. Naked, unashamed in the garden. Nakedness is what you want. You want to become completely, spiritually naked, which would really mentally be the exact same thing as removing the mote from your eye. It's the bundle of perceptions that we're living through. All right, this pattern is going to be maintained all throughout Abrahamic material and even more than that. What I've brought up now is King James Version of the book of Daniel, and they utilize wine in there as well. So let's go take a look and see if there's any differences here. It says 8 times, but let me make sure there's no swine in there. Wine, 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 wine. 8 times wine is said in the book of Daniel, which is what? That's negative. That's not okay. But let's go back and start reading. What is the first one? And the king appointed them a daily provision of the king's meat and of the wine which he drank. So nourishing them 3 years, that at the end thereof they might stand before the king. So in this case, the wine means this is your learning, this is your experience, this is your life experience, or whatever it is that you're going to be partaking of from the king's meat, from something other than yourself. This is a call to temptation. First sin. Here, I will feed you what I wish. Instead of, I will eat from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. You will eat this. And he's going to say, nope, I'm not going to do that. So they're going to resist the temptation, like Susanna. Interesting. All right. Anybody else follow my 3-7 grids? Eunuchs is repeated exactly 7 times. We got a 3-7 nod, 3-7 right there in the book of Daniel. This has to be there. There's a 7 down here with the eunuchs in it too. What are eunuchs? Those are things that can't produce. They're there, they're available, but they're not going to be producing anything that is harmful. They're not going to have physical relations with anything out there. A eunuch is somebody that doesn't have sex. What is sex? Between 2 men would be something like 2 consciousness going, up yours, no, up yours. And then something is created as an offspring of that. It's a mental, psychological process worded in such a way that you have to maintain that mental hierarchy and unwrap from it, okay? It's a little tricky, but once you learn it, it's like, okay, I see what they're doing. It is something that can be followed and exercised mentally. Okay, quick recap. Genesis. Wine represented the new way that he felt after creating his new vineyard on the other side of this purging. I'm high on life. I'm drunk on wine. I'm high on life because I've let it all go. I'm drunk on wine and now I'm naked. Analogously, the same things, identical. It's just verbiage way, about thousands of years apart. Okay, let's move on to something different. The book of Luke, King James Version, they're going to be maintaining the same thing. This is odd because we just looked at documents that were from the Old Testament. And you can go, oh, those guys are doing some numbering things. You get up here, this is New Testament. They're maintaining it. Do you see that 7 down there? And they had no child because Elizabeth, 9, was barren, 3. Elizabeth transition, barren, 3. Barren, empty, devoid. That's what you want. You want to be barren. You want to, that's not having collected all of that stuff. Do you understand what's happening in all of these stories? In verse 3 and in verse 7, there's a repeat of 7s and 3s always. That's the way the stories are structured. That goes all the way back to Genesis. Seventh day repeated 3 times, said on verse 3. That is maintained all throughout. These are following an identical pattern that we just don't. It's right in our hands, but it's not in our heads. Or you want to be in a famine. How many times do stories start out in a famine? Or, yeah, you can't eat this or that or something. This is all consuming of life. All right, so we get into Luke. What do we have here? Wine. This is where you're going to find swine, so you got to be careful. Swine is said 4 times. Therefore, wine is said 8 times. There's one down here that is wine bibber. See that? See, the Son of Man is coming, eating and drinking, and behold, a gluttonous man and a wine bibber, a friend of publicans and sinners. So that wine bibber right there is bad. You can just tell by looking at it. The wine itself, then, when we get rid of that one, we get rid of the swine. What I'll do is put a space in front of it. There we go. Okay. And then we got the wine bibber. So wine is 7 times. Wine is repeated 7 times. But look at, there's something here. If you look at it, you got new wine and new wine, and let's see, new wine, old wine, old wine. We got new wine and old wine here. So it doesn't sound the same. It really kind of doesn't. So 7, wine. What's the difference then? How do we differentiate? Let's interpret it. First of all, in this type of verse, this is not a monomyth. We're not the person. This is a I am that kind of a thing, I think. What we are is the bottles. No man put new wine into old bottles, lest the new wine will burst the bottles and be spilled and the bottles be perished. We are the bottles. We are the cup. We are the wheel. We are the house. We are whatever it is that they're talking about. That's us. So we are old bottles, and new wine is what? New way of feeling, new way of life. No man puts new way of life into their old self, or else the new self will burst the bottles and be spilled and the bottles will perish. So it's kind of, imagine trying to just move ahead in life without resolving anything. What happens? Recycle. How come this life eventually ends up, how come people are always this way? It starts out okay, but eventually it's the same way again. Yeah, we're trying to put new wine into old bottles. That's why it recycles. But new wine must be put into new bottles, and both are preserved. So we must put new life into a new self. All right, let's take a look at something. There's new wine and old wine. Old wine is only that one time. Old, that's gotta be wrong. I'm going to put a space in front of this. Old. Old is repeated exactly 11 times. Look at that. There's our step to bad. Old wine is bad wine. What if we go new? New wine. That's transitional. 9 is transitional. Okay. I don't know if you can follow this. If you can, I just look at that and go, oh my God, I am astounded by that. But it's taken so long to get into it. And I think other people would be like, I don't know what this dude's even talking about. I don't see it. Because you have to be able to just unwrap it in your own head. I try to show you here on the computer, but it's like, phew, it just goes on and on. Anyway, I'm going to end this because I know it gets too long. This one was really about the wine and showing how, what do we have? Genesis, wine is good. That's a new way of feeling. We get to Daniel, wine is bad. Why? Because the wine was the king's wine. That's the wine you don't want. You don't want that. That would be like the old wine, the king's wine. You want the good wine, the new self. And we're going to number it in such a way that you know that one of them is bad and one of them is good or transitional towards healing. All right. Hope the video was fun and interesting. I don't know what to do anymore. But, people can't follow. I wish there was somebody that could get this. All right. Take care.